Come on up, Dave Roberts. Dave knows the cattle business better than anyone that I'm aware of. The South Pole cattle, the bulls, the cows. He was instrumental in the start of the South Pole breed. So he's going to give us a little history on the South Pole cattle. Is that what you got to do?
Yeah.
Once he gets started, and listen, you got to. We're blessed to have David today. He's gonna help us understand the matching genetics, the right cows for your farm, and your program that you're doing. Go for it, David.
Thanks. We got dung beetles at our place. We have people come and get
Make
it.
sure you eat that thing.
Huh?
Make sure you eat that mic, yeah.
Really? No, we have dung beetles at our place. We had people come and get them
Yeah.
to take to their farms. And there's been people doing research for about 5 years now, Josh, coming and they'll come and measure them. I know there was a group, since you were talking about there was a group of soil scientists. They were from North Dakota, South Dakota, France. They came and this guy says, "Where'd you have the cows 2 days ago?" "All right, we want to go look for some dung beetles." I said, "We better get over there quick. We've been rotational grazing them." So we go to the last place there's one. We found 5 cow patties left. Well, we dug down, they could see the dung beetles on the top of that one. He's had some kind of tool. He went down over 2 foot and they were still in there, taking it down. So I was interested in it. And when they've been doing this research, we also found out that they've been, our side of the fence, we do rotational grazing and try to do things right. The other side of the fence, they're nice people, but they've had their cows in the same pasture for 25 years. They just leave them there. And they put on commercial fertilizer. They spray for weeds. They spray for insects. And the water retention on our side is over twice as much. And the carbon that goes down into the soil is way higher. But they have these tools out there to measure. But anyway, you can see a lot of difference. I've took pictures going right down the fence rope on both sides, and you can see the big difference in the grass. But anyway, they finally took them off the other day for 2 weeks, and they couldn't help themselves. They had to put cows back on it. But anyway, Martin wanted me to talk about the history of the breed, and I didn't start the breed. Teddy Gentry did in 1989, and he was trying to develop a breed that worked in the southeast at the time. Good maternal cows, and he was trying to create something that would be better eaten, because a lot of the cattle, I don't know if you have any Brahmas around here, but we have a lot of Brahma influenced cattle in Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and everything, and try to produce something that could take the heat and humidity and produce a better piece of meat. So he did a lot of researching, and he came up with 4 breeds to start the South Pole breed. And came up with Barzonas. The Barzona is a breed of cattle that has Afrikaner in it and Hereford and Angus primarily. It was developed in Arizona by the Bard family in the 40s and 50s. And and they're a real hardy breed. They was survival of the fittest. If they didn't make it on their own out there in the brush and the briars and everything, they were eliminated. And those cattle, we have a few of them left. We've acquired some more, I guess, just kind of try to get some new genetics back in the herd. But you won't see many flies on them. You can turn them out in the brush and everything. They'll eat anything. They'll eat the leaves off your trees and clean it all up. And then he used Centerpoles, which is a breed from the Virgin Islands, and it was developed down there. And it's primarily from red pole cattle from the United States. We're brought down from the United States and from a breed called a Dama from Africa. And when they did research on them in Florida, they were the most heat-tolerant breed that ever tested. They put them out there in the sun and see how they could take it compared to the other breeds. So then he used Herefords, which primarily were Herefords developed in the southeast, and a closed herd. They've been a closed herd since 1931, and they're not like most Herefords. They're slicker haired, they're deeper bodied, they're thicker, and usually have better udders than a lot of Herefords. And I was raised in the Hereford breed, but I know how they really are sometimes. And then we used Angus too, or he did, and most of them were red Angus, but we used some black bulls. Some people don't think we did, but we did. And we had he had a black Angus cow herd too, but they were smaller framed Angus that had a lot more depth of body and better udders than a lot of Angus. And those first few years, when you take four different breeds and you put them together, it's usually putting the Barzonas on the Herefords or vice versa, and the Senepols and Angus, and then crossing those two breeds, two different results together. And the first few years when you did that, if the herd bulls you used were too big, you'd have made them bigger instead of smaller. He was trying to downsize the cattle too. But I got there in '98, I guess, so I've been there 24 years. But the first ones that I got to calve out the first set of ones that were actually considered a full-blood southpaw. And it was interesting. I know one thing, you better be fast on your feet when you want to tag them calves. Because if you didn't get them when they was 2 or 3 hours old, it's going to be hard to catch. But we try weighing every calf and tagging it, and I tattooed them when they was born at the time. Now I've got older and lazier, and so I tattoo them when they're weaned. So, but we went back and used smaller frame bulls and got them down to where most of the cows that we have weigh from 1,000 to 1,100 pounds. And I still see a lot of 1,700, 1,800 pound cows out here in the country. And I tried all that when I was younger, and it didn't work. I figured out one year that the only person making any money off my Hereford herd was the guy selling me feed. So I quit doing that. That was before I moved to Alabama. I took away the feed bucket from the calves and the cows, and I finally made a little money. And but anyway, but when we were developing the breed of South Poles, we basically used I think we used over 5,000 cows to start with in the system. And I know I have an inventory still where we don't have as many cows as we used to, but we had 3,985 females and bulls that we were using for the South Pole breed to develop it. And when we started, well, after several years, we ultrasounded every calf, a weaning and yearling, and we did linear measurements on them. And we used to do a lot of steers, and we were doing about 400 or 500 steers a year, and we were selling beef out of we had a store there at the farm, but primarily it was going to UPS truck would come every day and pick up a big load. And we shipped to 39 states, I think. But we lost, there was a lot of leases we had. People decided they wanted to sell them. Well, that one place where we ran most of the steers was about, I don't know, 1,500 or 2,000 acres we had steers on. Well, they wanted to sell all that, and they had 20,000 acres they were trying to sell. And they wanted to sell that as a whole deal, and 20,000 times 6,000 is quite a bit. So that's what they wanted an acre for. So we kind of got out of the steer business at that time. And we reduced our cow numbers too, but we got down quite a bit. And I'll go back to the ultrasound a little bit. But on the ultrasound, what we were trying to look for was tenderness. We developed a program where you could look at the tenderness when you were ultrasounding the calf. What you're actually looking for is the way the muscle fibers lay and the connective tissue in there. And then worked on a program that you can put in a computer when you're doing your actual ultrasound. It tells you how big the ribeye is. It tells you what the marbling is. Anyway, we were trying to figure out. We were also studying the shape of the steaks, and found out actually the Barzonas and the Senepols are putting a better shape in the steaks than the Herefords and Angus were. And because everybody wants something to look pretty on the plate. And we did find out you can get your ribeyes too big. And that used to be a thing that people want great big ribeyes, but it's kind of got away from that, I'm thinking. That they want something that's more medium-sized or, I don't know. But we found out that the South Poles were making the ribeye per hundredweight was way better than any of the breeds we used to put in it. And we were trying to get a goal like on your live weight being about 1.25 square inches per rib of ribeye. Like for 1,000-pound steers, we won't even have a 12.5-inch ribeye. So we didn't have to get the steer weighing 1,600 pounds, and we fed steers. We were into grass-fed raising, but we have fed them. We took steers to Calicrate feedlot out in Kansas, and when we did that, they were 96% choice and prime. Got a letter from a packer out there who processed them. He says, "I don't know what you guys are doing, but you need to keep doing it. Don't be worried about what anybody else is doing." And we've sold steers when we'd get too many. What we were primarily doing when we were feeding or having the grass-fed steer beef was we were buying steers from our bull customers because we sell primarily. We're in the bull business. We're not in the feeder calf business anymore. And we were buying steers back from our bull customers. And you get carried away and buy too many. And had about 160 too many one year. So I sold 80 to a guy that feeds about 4,500 head of cattle a year. And then sold another 80 to somebody up in Tennessee or northern Kentucky. And he grass-fed. He does grass-fed cattle. Well, the grass-fed guy said that those steers outgained any calves he'd ever had. And the guy feeding the cattle, he said those steers outgain. If they do good on grass, we found out they'll do good in the feedlot. If you want to feed them, feed them. But when he did those 80 head, they gained 4.86 a day average. He said that's the best he'd ever done. I don't know. But anyway, we went on from there. But as far as what do you want to know about the history? I don't know.
You want to do a little Q&A on this?
Sure.
We got a little time.
Yeah, that'd work.
We would have a little time for some questions about the South Pole breed. A question you might have for Dave. It's a great time to ask it. Anybody have any questions you'd like to ask? Right here.
What do they gain on grass per day?
We had a bunch in August.
The question is, what do they gain on grass?
I know what you said.
Yeah.
Okay. Here.
No.
The best we ever did was 3 1/4.
Should you speak up now?
The best we ever did was, I think they gained 3 1/4. But it was really good grass. I found out if you're going to graze steers, you need to keep them on good grass. I mean, better than the cows need, probably. But the grass so good, they would leave the clover, some of it. So we had a lot of clover. We put a lot of clover out. We'll interseed clover out with all of our grass we can. We got a few places that need some work. And I know on our grass, we don't use any commercial fertilizer. The only thing we ever use is fish oil and C90 sea salt. We'll spray it out there too. And then instead of using lime, we use coral calcium. Which calcium, the coral, we make it in the liquid form and spray it on the pasture, and it's about 300 times more soluble than lime. It'll go to work that much quicker, and it ends up being way cheaper. We're cheap, or tight, I guess that's another way for it.
Question. Yeah.
But usually we tried to have them gain 2 pounds or better. That's what our goal was. We'd weigh them about every month. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
What do you think about the extreme expansive drought going on this year and the significant herd reduction?
Well, it's going to make the prices go up. But there's people that's got some South Poles out in those places. They've been able to keep them because they were trying to rotational graze them and not just let them eat the grass down to nothing. That's what they did. That's what people run the grass. They run the grass. We've been through droughts. I don't know. But if you let you talked about it, didn't you?
Yeah.
The shorter you get the grass, the less root system you have underneath. And so you don't, it just, I don't know. We had a drought one year and I had a bunch of calves out there, mostly bull calves. I was moving them about 10 feet every day across the pasture to try to keep them, something for them to eat. But ended up, but I don't know. There's people that's been in those drought areas that they're looking for South Pole bulls now. You know that, ma'am?
The coral calcium you said you sprayed, how long does that last?
I'm not sure.
Let me repeat the question.
She wouldn't know how long that coral calcium lasts when you sprayed it. I don't know.
Is it like a couple years or is it?
Oh, it lasts longer. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We don't put it on we put it on probably every, Josh, whatever, 4 or 5 years, 3 years, 2 or 3 years. We don't put on enough to probably as you could at once. We'll spray it every 2 or 3 years. It costs about, about $12 an acre.
Oh, that's great. Question over here.
What linear measurements are you paying the most attention to in your like breeding steers or not steers, bulls or cows?
Oh, when we were doing it, we were doing every one of them, and I know what people were saying. I know what an expert was saying. He was saying it showed how much their carcass was going to be, but actually, I really think it has more to do with their being able to maintain themselves. Because I went more we measured them right behind in their rib cage, right behind the shoulders,
Yes, sir.
compared to their length, and that seemed to have more of
So
an
the rib
effect.
cage, and then from the top of their shoulder to the hook
Well, yeah, and their length.
and the length.
Yeah, we were measuring their hip. We measured their hip. We still do that. I don't measure all that other, but I mean, we did thousands of them.
Yes, sir.
Yep, and I did find out something though. It's not all. A lot of that cattle are fat on the inside. You know that. I found out at the hard way. We measured one, and I don't know. You probably heard of Gerald Fry. You heard of him?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, he was there measuring cattle one day. He liked to come and measure our cattle sometimes. And I had a cow, it was one of my kids. And he said, she measured, I think the thing we were trying to find out was cattle that was 2 inches bigger around than they were long, from the point of their shoulders to their tail end. So this cow was 9 inches bigger around. He said, boy, if you ever want to sell her, I'd like to buy her. I said, well, I don't think so. Anyway, she got anaplasmosis there about 2 years later. If you'd have measured her then, you'd have got a different story. She ended up dying, but we had a herd. We was leasing the place, and I didn't think anything about it at the time. But there was a drainage ditches there, and they got full of water and mosquitoes. And we got anaplasmosis in that one group of cows. We treated 40-some head that one day, and 7 of them didn't make it. So,
That's one of the downs. That's one of the challenges.
yes, it is. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Right here.
What's your primary forage or your forage?
Our primary forage is fescue, Kentucky 31.
Get away from this thing a little bit. There you go. Try that.
Kentucky 31. You wouldn't know what our primary forage was, but we'll try to get other things out there too. We got some orchard grass. We got some warm season grass. We got a little bit of Dallas grass. We try to get some clover out there. Not every pasture's perfect, so I know that. We don't have very good dirt. We have a lot of rocks. We live up on top of the Lookout Mountain. And we also have cattle we're running in Mississippi right now, and it's fescue over there. And then down by Marion, Alabama, we have about 200 down there now, and it was mostly fescue. but they all get rotational grazed about every day. Now I got some on a. I rented a little place since we lost the place that they sold. They wanted 15,000 an acre for a pasture. I thought that was a bit too much. Now it's good grass, but I ended up another South Pole guy's got it. But he put about 80 head on. There's 40 acres there. We was running about 30 head of cattle. You could run about 30 head on that 40 acres. And but it's fescue and Johnson grass, 2 or 3 different kinds of clover. But I moved some cows to a place of just strictly warm season grass, and that stuff's gone. It's done for the year. So I'm gonna have to get them off of there and bring them home, I reckon. Put them on something different.
What about the tenderness test?
What about it?
Tell about it.
Oh, well, Josh wanted me to tell you about the tenderness. What we were doing when we were doing the tenderness on the ultrasound, we'd take a steak and run it, waste it, pretty much. I don't think it's wasted. We'd take a steak out of every steer, and we got a Warner Brasler shear force machine, and you take core samples out of that, and then we had a girl working there. She'd cook these all up on a George Foreman grill, so they was all done exactly the same. And they'd do a tenderness test on them. And then we were taking the shear force machine will tell you how dumb you are, really, or smart. And we were getting pretty close to, we'd have blind taste tests then and this and that. There was corn. But anyway, one time we decided to DNA a bunch of stuff too. They got DNA tests for tenderness. And I hope it's more accurate than it used to be, because we had a bull calf there on our tenderness test with the ultrasound. It said he was the best one we ever did. But he had 0 copies of DNA for tenderness. So Teddy Gentry said, just steer him. So he said, you just well take him to the sale barn. He won't be fit to eat. But I was too hard-headed to do that. So I kept him and got him processed. Guess what? He was the most tender one we ever checked with the shear force machine. He was a winner, because that score was from 1 to 10, and we had him below 1, and he was. And that's why a lot of the Brahmas will be up around 8 or 9, and South Poles will be around 3, 2.5, 3 to most. That's a big difference. When we were doing blind taste tests, had people come in, they didn't know what they were eating, except for the only person knew was the guy cooking. And he was trying to cook them all alike, and everybody was we compared him to Wagyus, Angus, whatever. And we did 2 or 3 locally there, and South Poles always won. The guy flew in Wagyu beef clear from the state of Washington. We tried a Wagyu bull. It didn't work. I mean, I'm not criticizing any other breed, but on them, they just took too long to finish. We were doing some grain-fed cattle. At the time, we thought we could sell some of that in the meat store, and it got so we couldn't even sell the grain-fed. Everybody wanted grass-fed. So we did away with the Wagyu deal. We didn't even keep any heifers. They're just too hard doing. And we tried some other breeds, just to experiment. We tried an Italian breed called Romanolas. And we bought some Romanola females even, and turned the little South Pole bull out there, and I was just laughing because the South Poles, they're tall. And I thought, this bull never breed him. He did. But they didn't last long either. We did have one bull that was pretty good, but anyway. Anything
Another
else?
question or two, then we're going to take a 5-minute break before we start. Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Can you speak on like tenderness when you are crossing just a South Pole bull to straight commercial cattle, with no other South Pole influence? Does that tenderness from the bull seem to carry to the offspring?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
We did. It did. We did it.
Yes, sir.
We tried it. I mean, all of them. When we were selling bulls to people, most of their cows were South Poles.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, so they were just using a bull, and then y'all would buy
yeah,
back some steers. And
Yeah, then it got so they were keeping the heifers, and then they were breeding it back to South Pole. So that, well, the next speaker is going to speak about that, about breeding them up, but
Yes, sir.
it helps them. No, it was helping them. Yeah, it improved the tenderness on them and the meat quality. The ribeye, because we had our own ultrasound equipment, so Kathy Richburg, she's with Soil Health Consultants now. Her and I'd go out to different herds and ultrasound every steer they had. We pick out. We was trying to get the best ones, but then we do the heifers too sometimes, but usually steers. And, you get tired if you stand there all day. Yeah, there you go.